The MCU just keeps getting better and better, and with Phase 4 right around the corner, fans have gotten pretty excited and anxious as to what the future holds. And that's because the MCU, a franchise populated by familiar characters during the last decade, is heading into uncharted territory. Stars will depart, debuts will come, and the stakes will be raised. It's going to make the franchise's fourth phase a really interesting one to contemplate, and with Disney's tyrannical conquest of Fox opening up the doors for both the X-Men and the Fantastic Four to enter the scene, limits for what ostensibly can or can't be told are getting more and more boundless by the day. That being said, fans of the MCU are going to have to reconcile their expectations and ideas with what the House of Mouse have planned for the future. Brilliant concepts are going to fall on deaf ears, and while there's no reason to doubt Marvel going forward, given just how good their productions have been as of late, there are certain ideas that must be better than what will have been drafted on the big screen. So, that's right folks, I'm Ewan from What Culture, and it's time to put my glorious Marvel ideas to the test with 10 fan ideas better than what Marvel have planned for the MCU. Number 10, a Howling Commandos TV show. So, way back when I originally wrote this article, back before the days of Disney+, I originally said that Hawkeye should have had a TV show of his own backed up by Kate Bishop. Barton's likely to get a show. That's great, but one thing I'd also like to see is the Howling Commandos. Something in the vein of Band of Brothers that brought back Haley Atwell's Agent Carter, Neil McDonough's Dum Dum Dugan, and JJ Field's Union Jack would be a welcome addition to Disney's platform. Heck, maybe they even throw Fury's dad into the equation too. Number 9, A-Force. Although recent chatter has indicated that Marvel are excited by the idea of an A-Force film, with Thor Ragnarok star Tessa Thompson having optioned it alongside Avengers co-star Scarlett Johansson, Evangeline Lilly, Zoe Saldana and more, actual plans for the film are anything but concrete. That said, it's easy to see why Marvel would get excited about A-Force. The team itself was comprised of Marvel's leading ladies, as they dealt with the fallout of Secret Wars. There needn't be such a convoluted premise to bring A-Force to the MCU, however. All of the franchise's leading women possess bags of star power, and their characters have all managed to leave an impact on both the audience and on-screen universe in one way or another. In the wake of Wonder Woman, Ghostbusters, and even the upcoming Black Widow and Captain Marvel, A-Force is the film everyone wants and needs. Number 8, a Nakia spin-off film. Black Panther continues to make waves in just about every way imaginable, and while the film's breakout stars look to be Letitia Wright Shuri and Winston Duke's M'Baku, Lupita Nyong'o's Nakia is undoubtedly one of the standout characters. A Wakandan spy renowned for her combat prowess as much as she is her beliefs, Nakia is the character best suited to a spin-off from Ryan Coogler's seminal superhero feature, and while fans have anticipated a Black Widow film for a while now, Nakia's popularity has, understandably, gone through the roof. An appearance in a sequel is almost guaranteed, but while it's great to see Nyong'o there again, giving Nakia a film of her own would be the perfect way of building upon the success of Black Panther, especially since the film's supporting cast was so good in their respective roles. Number 7, a new Blade film. There are a whole host of ways to bring Blade back to the big screen, but while Marvel are yet to lend weight to rumours that a reboot is in production, fans have been eager to plan ahead for how the Dave Walker could be introduced to the MCU. Seeing as how the character doesn't exactly lend himself well to the MCU's more mainstream elements, with an R rating the only proper way to go about adapting the character to the big screen, any Blade production would have to be Marvel's most ambitious yet. Mature comic book capers might be in right now, but it's a path not yet ventured by Marvel Studios, with only Marvel TV having taken the mature route for productions on Netflix. It needn't be a fraught path, however. It's important to remember that Blade kickstarted the comic book genre as we know it today. It was also wildly successful, spawning 2 sequels, a TV show, and a spot in pop culture as Marvel's preeminent supernatural character. Blade has all the trappings of a tentpole MCU feature. If it's not the top of Marvel's priorities, then something is very clearly wrong. Number 6, Marvel Knights, Spider-Man, and Daredevil. Spider-Man and Daredevil might be the best buds on the page, but they've never been as far apart off it as they are today. Considering that they're actually owned by the same studio now, that's a crying shame. Marvel TV's Daredevil ranked among the very best comic book adaptations of all time, and while it's an MCU property through and through, Marvel Studios have shown no enthusiasm whatsoever in sending any love Netflix's way, whether it be in the form of cameos, references, or something else entirely. To say it's not an issue would be dishonest, but while it's true that Netflix's shows sustained themselves without any cinematic acknowledgement whatsoever, the prospect of these properties one day intersecting has gotten a lot of fans excited. In Daredevil and Spider-Man, you have one of the most formidable partnerships in the Marvel Universe, and the perfect encapsulation of the dichotomy of New York's crime fighters. Just, you know, have to wait a couple of years for that clause Netflix negotiated to wear out. Don't you go rebooting this again, Marvel, I swear. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio must be protected at all costs. Number 5. Anything other than Secret Invasion. To be clear, it's absolutely amazing that the Skrulls are finally coming to the MCU. They're the Fantastic Four's big baddies, and no other alien species has flirted with the Marvel Universe quite like they have. They're also bound to make Captain Marvel even better, but while their presence in that film is an exciting one to contemplate, talk of them impacting the MCU in a bigger way should be cause for concern. Secret Invasion, the 2008 Skrull bonanza written by Brian Bendis, is the cause of that concern. The comic's Invasion of the Body Snatchers style premise certainly sounded interesting at the time, with the Skrulls having infiltrated the superhero community en masse, but the execution wasn't as successful, with the comic lacking both the paranoia and commentary of Jack Finney's 1955 novel. And yet, that very premise represents the logical conclusion of a Skrull introduction into the MCU. The problem for Marvel here, so to speak, is that it would take an awful lot of goodwill from an audience to invest in the idea that the characters they've been following for years on end have only been imitations of the originals. It would be an underhand tactic, and while it's true the introduction of the Skrulls promises much, there's a danger that they could impact the MCU in a negative way. Number 4, a whole new version of the X-Men. We're still a good year or two away from the X-Men finally entering the MCU, but Marvel have already intimated that they're figuring out how best to use them right now. They're coming, no question about it, but it's who will be coming that gives most cause for concern. Since 2000, Fox have played it relatively safe with the X-Men characters featured on the big screen, bar maybe First Class. This on-screen charge was led by Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and though fans will be desperate to see Wolvie in particular on the big screen at some point, Marvel would do well to spotlight other mutants first. There are so many lineups, teams, and versions of the X-Men that could be used, but please, Marvel, maybe try highlighting those that didn't get a massive focus on the first go. Number 3, Valkyrie becomes the new Thor. Thor Ragnarok was the Thor film every God of Thunder fan had been waiting for. And while it's fair to say that Chris Hemsworth is fantastic in the role of the Odin's son, there's no reason to say there can't be two Gods of Thunder on the big screen. Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie was by far Ragnarok's best character, and with it looking as though some of the MCU's founding actors will be departing the franchise sooner rather than later, it would make sense for Marvel to make the character the new Goddess of Thunder, much like Jane Foster did in the comics themselves in Jason Aaron's unmissable stint on the character. Irrespective of the fact it was Jane who assumed the mantle in the comics, Ragnarok was clearly meant to be a clear break from those earlier Thor films. What better way to hammer that further then than to make Valkyrie the new Thor, taking inspiration from one of the best comics of the last decade. Number 2, Thunderbolts. The Marvel equivalent of DC's Suicide Squad, the Thunderbolts are an anti-heroic team comprised of the House of Ideas' biggest bad guys, including the likes of Venom, Elektra, and even Deadpool in its roster over the years. It's a dirty dozen idea that could actually resonate with critics and audiences alike, building upon past MCU ensembles in Guardians, Defenders, and, more obviously, the Avengers, but with a villainous edge. With Spidey now back in Marvel's good books, there's the whole Sinister Six to contemplate, along with characters like Punisher, Bullseye, and more, all of which have held membership of the team at some point or another. Number 1, bring in the Fantastic Four as soon as possible. The Fantastic Four have not, by any stretch of the imagination, had a good history when it comes to the cinematic realm. All were really quite naff, and although that would perhaps give reason to throw caution into the wind in regards to adapting the Fab Four all over again, Marvel's first family are tailor-made for the MCU. The X-Men, on the other hand, present a far greater challenge in making them MCU-able. Mutants don't have a presence in that realm, and while we'll want to see them eventually, bringing Sue, Reed, Johnny, Ben, and all their villains, including the infallible Doctor Doom and Galactus, should be a priority. Either way, they have the potential to be franchise leaders for years to come, and while it'll require some juggling on Marvel's behalf, and a tremendous amount of goodwill from audiences and executives alike, it's a risk worth taking.